pitch, hit, and run like the pros. Bases loaded. Welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Joe.
And I'm Sean.
And today we are talking about Jaleco's Bases Loaded, a baseball game. But I understand that, not everyone here
might
knows be familiar
baseball.
with baseball.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, in order for you to understand what we're talking about with this game, you sort of have to understand what the sport of baseball is even about. So basically, baseball is their weekly reenactments of the Battle of Gettysburg, where there were the Union troops who stood on top of large hills.
Were they large?
It was a very large hill, and then the Confederate troops stood out in a wide field. They had sticks and balls, and basically would throw a ball up into the air and hit it with a stick. And if it hit the person that threw the ball, well, that's a strike.
Baseball is also a numbers game. It's a game of numbers. It's a game of math magicians. It's a game for everybody who can count. Because ultimately, count
down. Mostly up.
Yeah, I actually can't think of a scenario in baseball where you count down.
Well, how many outs you have left?
Yeah, you do everything in reverse.
And how many more runs you have until
100. From 100.
In true fashion, though, no Major League Baseball game has ever scored 100 runs.
Ever.
How do you know?
Combined,
I do know. I just know. I think actually, like, the most combined runs ever was something like 36.
That's stupid.
It's a lot of runs in one game, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. Thank you for your very accurate description of baseball, Sean. I'm sure if you listened to last week's episode, faithful fans, you already know what baseball is all about. It's about the American Revolutionary War. And we are going to get into that right away as we talk about what makes Jaleco's Bases Loaded so much that more different than the other 3 baseball games that we've played so far. And I will take it away with the easiest description I can give you, which is that somebody has finally figured out a way to take what you're seeing on your TV when you watch a baseball game and then say, hey, why not just make it look like that while they play the baseball game?
It seems that somebody in the art department at Jaleco finally took a class in human figure drawing. Because they actually do look like human beings instead of these very weird, pudgy meatball men that also are wearing glaring hats and jerseys.
Yeah, and the camera is definitely coming from center field where it is for all the game feeds. And and you see yourself on the pitcher's mound. And it's facing the batter, and that doesn't change when you're at bat. You're still seeing the same view that you would see if you were watching a Major League Baseball game. So this is the first time that we're really seeing a kind of like a rewrite on how to do a baseball game on the NES.
And this is kind of, it's like the norm now, too, right? I mean, it's like you're watching it on TV.
No? I mean, this is actually a very good, old-timey looking thing that you would get if you were pitching in a game, like in a current game.
When you're batting, it's
but
still
if you're
behind
batting, it's still behind you.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess you could play it with you behind the pitcher. I actually never tried that. But
usually in games today, you're only ever like basically
where
from the catcher's perspective. Yeah.
But this looks like an HD remaster of the entire sport of baseball. I gotta say, like the graphics in this game are so choice. Whether it's the batting screens or the fielding screens, they just look so tasty and scrumptious, and like 70s mustaches everywhere.
Yeah, it's a little like I don't even know what to add to that, but you're right.
And there's also, like, while we're talking about the presentation of everything, there's something here that all of the other games were missing for me in terms of like flair to these things. Like you can see
Ric Flair.
Yeah, exactly. But you can see like people behind you in the stadium. Mm-hmm. You can see like
there are like little dots in the last
umpires
game.
The umpires get names even like for no good reason. It goes back to the scoreboard to show you like the entire lineups and who's coming up to bat.
If you get a home run, you get a little, you get a cool little animatic.
You see
of the person rounding the bases behind
and
the
the
pitcher.
pitcher crying.
And also, for those of you who are familiar with like baseball in the 80s and stuff like that, that's how minimal the scoreboard used to be too. So like
You mean like the on-screen scoreboard?
the constant on-screen scoreboard. It like having like balls, strikes, outs right there and just showing you them. Like it feels very much alive in this one. I like this one.
The presentation, they stepped it up tenfold from every game we played.
The only thing that's really missing from like a real factor is the catcher's mitt. What's going on there?
No. This is next-gen graphics here. Like, first of all, they didn't need to put the catcher's mitt in the game. The fact that they put it in, I know it's a weird thing that if it's way out, if it's way out of the strike zone, the guy kind of loses his mitt. But the fact that it's in there, it has a purpose gameplay wise. It's just I think a really cool addition.
Yeah. To elaborate on that a little bit, what the catcher's mitt does is it basically moves where you're pitching the ball so you can better see as the pitcher or as the batter where the ball is going.
Yeah.
So it's a nice feature.
You can kind of triangulate the position.
Exactly. And it does float a little ways off the catcher's body and go way outside.
It's almost like it's disembodied from him because he doesn't move at all. And I'm not expecting him to. So before anybody comes at me, I was never expecting the catcher to actually like bend his knees a little and stuff like that. I just thought that was like a funny like touch to like all this other like great stuff that's going on. However, all made up teams and players.
This isn't a game breaker for me, or this isn't a deal breaker for me. I love games, sports games that create the. I mean, this doesn't create its own universe, but it does have like stories kind of told between like the names of players and like what teams they're on. It sort of like reminds me of Blitz the League. If you ever played that.
Never did, but
it's a game that's not anything like this. It's first of all, it's football, but it is made up teams with made up players, and they all have their own little stories to tell. And this is sort of like that. It's fun.
Yeah, I definitely didn't mean it as like a deal breaker either. Yeah. I just thought that it's interesting how like we saw one game that did get the team names, the other one they got the player names, and this time it's just like. Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
None of that, but instead...
Utah gets
I was just going to say Utah. It's so funny.
Right, but instead you get to choose, like, what factor you want in your game. So now in 1980 alone, we have had 3 different baseball games. So it's either you care about your team, you care about your players, your athletes, or you just care about presentation of what a baseball game is. Because a lot of people like to just, like... watch baseball. It's therapeutic, like it's a long game that some people recently have not, have been trying to like speed up. But for everything baseball is, I think that this one is very faithful to that adaptation. And I was surprised on booting the game up because I never looked at anything beforehand. So I was surprised to see this graphical presentation.
So was I. Not even just the graphical presentation, but just the decisions on where the camera, quote unquote, the camera is and everything. I did not expect them to change up the formula that much.
Yeah, they're really going for something here too because immediately you can see that you can do a whole 162 game season of baseball.
I think it's a 9-game season, but
oh really? I guess I never asked myself like what a season would entail.
I think it's like a round robin.
But okay, that's cool.
You play
the other team.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, because I was going to say that the password system there. Gives you the option to like
store
your progress and stuff like that,
and the other team's records because after every game it'll give you a box score.
Yeah, so it was just neat to see like something that would actually like store stats in that way rather than just provide the stats of players based on like the set stats that they provided to them or like not necessarily like the best teams will always just advance to the finals.
Yeah.
So that was really cool, and I liked that there was a password system for that. It reminded me of like having a bunch of N64 sports games that I love, and that if you didn't have a memory card, you could use a password for those to store your season. I did that with Wayne Gretzky's 3D Hockey a lot.
Do love that game.
That's a great game. So that's that. But let's actually get into the gameplay of baseball here. We always start with batting. So who can talk me through kind of what makes this batting different than the other 3 games we played.
Do you want to go?
It doesn't matter. I don't have. I mean, I can start, I guess. But the one biggest difference that I noticed was that I personally relied a lot more on the shadow of the ball to see to see how high or low it was pitched when I'm batting, and then I also, like we said, like the catcher's mitt. I do feel like it was easier than RBI baseball to tell when to read the pitch.
See, so the fact that we've completely switched the camera system here, and again, camera, loose term, but with the perspective now behind the pitcher at a sort of at an off angle, so that there's a lot more depth that needs to be communicated to you in some other way than just a straight line from the pitcher to the hitter. The fact that all these changes were made really threw me off in the beginning. Like, I was swinging at air half the time because you would think that it's coming at a low angle, but it's actually way above you. But you do eventually learn, and if this is your first game, then I'm sure it'll be a lot easier to pick up. But the biggest difference between this game and the previous baseball games, aside from the perspective change, is that this is zone hitting as opposed to just move your guy around in the batter's box and try and follow the ball. So if it looks like it's coming low, you can decide to swing low. If it looks like it's coming high, you can decide to swing high. And all of the other permutations of that.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. And that made a big difference. And also, I will also say I feel like the ball, the pitch comes in slower.
Yeah,
it seems like that's a big reason why I think it's easier to read.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to add to that, but I did think that it was interesting that there were times where even if you could predict which zone the pitcher was pitching in, I felt like you still couldn't make exact contact with the ball if you chose like a near area to it. So like if he was pitching high and you chose to swing high, you would see it, but it wouldn't necessarily always guarantee contact just because you chose correctly.
Right. And then sometimes it would even just give you a foul. So.
Right, and I thought that was kind of a strange choice here because there's already so many like permutations involved there of just like, well, there's 8 different zones and or 9. There's 9 different zones, and now I have to choose like 9 different potential batting swings, and guessing the right one should give like some kind of extra reward. I feel like it's kind of like in the show. You have the ability to kind of select, like, I think he'll shoot here, and if he does, they'll show you the pitch coming as like a reward.
I think it does enough to reward you for guessing correctly, because if you guess wrong, you're not going to make any contact. So if you guess correctly, or you're not even guessing, you're just using the information provided. It really is just up to maybe it is up to the stats of the hitter and your timing.
For me, I just had a little problem with like hitting in this game compared to our other baseball games. It was very hard to get on base, but it was what it was, and I did like the added bonus of controlling where you swing instead of moving around in the batter's box, which is something we said we were doing a lot in RBI baseball. And in this one, you're more trying to just think about like where you should be making contact. Mm-hmm. You can also do like for bunts and stuff like that, you could, or even check swings and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting that you don't necessarily have to commit through.
You can kind of do like a drag bunt too.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there with batting that they've added that could go either way for me. I think at times, seriously, I think at times I really liked having this setup, and then at other times I thought like, well, maybe it was better when it was simpler.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Let's talk about running.
So with running, as soon as you make contact with the ball, there is a flash to black, and then you come on to a bit more recognizable screen of the full diamond and outfield. And if you didn't quite hit it right, you're just going to get an error sound kind of, and it's just going to say foul. By the way, with presentation, this is a voiced announcer
Right.
Yeah, we've heard them try to do that before in other games.
And this
It's
is
been
the
terrible.
clearest I can hear.
This is great.
Yeah, I'm surprised that we forgot to mention that.
Yeah,
to
we
begin.
were busy talking about the television style,
Yeah.
but I mean, to have an actual like commentary was cool. Not like announcer commentary.
and with in hitting as well, like it'll say strike, ball, foul. So you've gotten to contact, and now you're on that screen, and it's kind of it's similar to the previous games, but
I think
this
it's similar to RBI baseball,
Yeah.
except for it just maps them differently.
Yeah, the sprites that are used in as like the players in this game though retain a more realistic form factor, and I think they're just a little bit snappier too. Like there's some momentum to the players.
Sure. I actually would argue that in terms of both running, fielding, and just like the way that the game plays out, it's much more realistic in terms of like, you know, we talked about in the last episode, if you go get a ground ball to shortstop, you might make it. In this one, you don't have a chance. You know, it's done. It's a done deal. You also have less time than you think overall when it comes to running. So you can't
We'll get
always
into that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't always like just go to second because it was out. You know, it was into the outfield. Like,
Honestly,
you have to think.
yeah, it's true. And I just wanted to say that the umpires in this game are bullshit. They are liars and they're cheats. Because I've definitely had my foot on one or two plates that are just called out. And I don't know if you guys had a similar experience.
Was that yuck, dumb, boo, or bum?
I think it may have been yuck.
Okay, for those of you unaware, those are the names provided of the umpires on the scoreboard. Yuck was the home plate umpire, and he is the ultimate like controller of the game. So yeah, he's
Did you
actually,
guys have a similar experience?
He is Master Hand in Super Smash Bros. I don't know if I had it. I think I would say that in this situation, the phrase "tie goes to the runner" is not true.
Yeah.
You know, I think that it's just automatically decided that close calls always just go to the fielding team, regardless of things. But I don't know. As long as it's consistent, I feel like that's fine.
Sure.
Like, it works for me. I would hate it if, like, the same thing happened as I was fielding. Now, all of a sudden, the runner is superior.
Yeah.
So I think it is a weird choice, though.
Yeah, tie always goes to the computer.
Right. Back then, though, there was no video replays or anything like that, and a lot of times you would get the benefit of the doubt as the runner in the tie, and that's where the saying comes from. So I would think it's kind of weird to program the game that way. However, when it comes to the simulation factor of the game here, specifically in base running and stuff like that, I think it nails just how hard it is if you don't have the speed on your player, just how hard it is to actually get anywhere in baseball. It's not just about hitting the ball, it's about getting around the bases too. And some people might argue that they feel sluggish, but I don't think that they feel sluggish. I think it's just more like, well, that felt like 90 feet to each base.
Yeah,
like,
sluggish, but then if you compare it to everything else going on, the speed the ball moves and everything else, then it's not sluggish.
I think it's a pretty good representation.
Yeah.
So when you get around to pitching, it's pretty much like you could describe it like the batting, in the sense that you do get to choose between the 9 different zones of where you want to pitch, but you can also choose between 4 different pitches.
Yes.
Depending on your D-pad, and then you first pick which type of pitch you want, and then you pick which zone you want to throw it to. I thought pitching in this game was a lot better than the batting.
I also felt that this was a bit more chaotic for me in terms of pitching. Like, it was hard for me to put the ball where I wanted it, but again, I think it's supposed to be that way in some respect, especially for somebody that only played this for enough to record an episode about it.
Sure.
So
Yeah, you get. I'm sure you develop this skill as you go.
But again with presentation, like all the little hooks are there with, like, you know, throwing it back, and you can bean somebody in this game.
But what's interesting about that is that you can only bean, or rather, you can only provoke one batter to charge the mound per team.
I didn't even know what I did because it happened to me, and I got the guy to charge me. I don't know if it was like. If it was just because it was that guy.
It's that guy. Only one.
Oh, it's the specific batter that
only one batter per team. Usually the team's best hitter is who it is. And
they threw him out.
They can charge the mound. Yeah, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
I really thought, like, wow, that's a extra level to go.
Yeah, I didn't see it happen, but I read that could happen.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
It's interesting to see. I'll try and link a video if I
they
can.
give you another little animatic in the jumbotron.
Right. And I mean, back in the 80s, like, charging the mound was a little more frequent than it is today. Not that it doesn't happen today. It was just that, like, you know, even my team, the New York Mets, they were known for being very aggressive. So, like, I think that's cool that they chose to include that in the game, and probably why they couldn't score any Major League Baseball licenses, or maybe because Major League Baseball had already given them to. Like, that would be funny actually to find out Jalico just figures out, like, wait a minute, they made a deal with the MLB, they made a deal with the MLB. What are we gonna do? Hey, give us team to Utah.
That's right.
Send that team to Utah. Pitching, Sean, just to get back into your point about, like, it not going where you wanted. I think for me, I didn't have that problem, but I had more of a problem of figuring out what I wanted to do against the batter, because these batters felt like they're pretty good compared to what we were talking about in the RBI baseball episode, and therefore it was more like, well, do I throw balls more often than I usually would? Like, it's not rewarding to throw bad pitches in video games ever. You know, like, you never, like, unless you're really playing on, like, harder difficulties in newer games and stuff like that. For the most part, people usually just throw, like, strikes
or maybe against a real person.
I don't know. Paint the corner, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I'm not saying down the middle. Nobody throws down the middle, hopefully. You throw down the middle fastball, you deserve it.
Well, one way that I was able to get a few guys to strike out was to throw not a slider, to throw a slow ball.
Okay.
What would that be called usually?
Cutter?
Okay, I would throw a cutter.
Okay.
And start near the bottom and just have it go up the strike zone. And the guy just got confused and would just swipe below it. And that would actually help for, like, a few pitches in a row before, you know, it would end up as a home run. But I guess it confuses the computer a little bit to do that.
Would it, like, quote unquote, catch on? Or,
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it actually adapts to that,
Right.
but I just mean that I was able to do it a few times in a row until it bit me on the ass. So that was my strategy for the most part.
And let's say you pitch the ball and they get a hit, right? And it goes anywhere. Is everyone on your team just really freaking slow?
yes.
Yeah, it is.
Even this is something we talked about in the last episode, but even the ball when you're fielding, I feel like when you're throwing the ball, it moves, like, slower than the runner.
It has, like, weight to it.
Yeah, it's like that you can outrun the ball in the air. It's a little.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say go that far because
Fielding destroyed the game for me, for what it's worth. So I am going to go that far.
I wouldn't, because I know that, like, the runners are nowhere near as fast as the ball, especially.
Oh no, yeah, for sure. I meant more like this overall feeling of, like,
a little bit,
of just, like, the sluggishness of the players, and that you're better off actually in certain scenarios just letting them control themselves, like, not moving your outfielders, because they will kind of, like, auto run if they're close to the area of a fly ball. You're better off having that than trying to, like, catch the momentum yourself.
Right. Especially if it's a fly ball, because you get the same issue where you can't see them.
Yeah,
so let them do their thing until you
there.
can see them, and then take over if you need.
I'd like to go back real quick and just say that the pitch I was thinking of was change up, and the other thing I would like to say is that I think that fielding was. Well, yes, the fly balls you still can't see, and I feel like that's going to be a problem for a while. But I've turned into, since the last game, my litmus test has been, can I execute a double play? And I was able to execute a double play in this game. So I do think that, like, again, it's not perfect, but I think this is an improvement from the last game in terms of fielding.
Yeah, interesting. I felt like in this one, the ball gets in. I don't know what the terminology would be, but if the ball goes past you, let's say, right, like it's a line drive and you didn't pick it up right away, now you're guaranteeing, like, a triple just off of that.
Really?
That's how I felt.
I felt similar. I did feel like just controlling the fielders at all felt very clunky and, like, a little less. I don't want to say responsive, because obviously it responds immediately, but, like, it just felt harder to get where you're going, like, really, than than the previous game. And I know this is its own episode, and I keep comparing it to
we
the previous game.
the,
Like, you
you know,
have to, yeah.
We have a doubleheader here.
Right,
you know?
exactly, yeah. And we played these back to back. I mean, so it's fresh in my head when I'm playing this game.
But the sluggish feel from fielding does translate to the overall feel of this game, which I think is opposite to RBI baseball, in that this game just takes a long time to get through one game, let alone an entire season.
Yeah.
You know, there's the fact that and maybe it is loading something, like, you know, even though like games back then don't really have to load, it's showing you the scoreboard, the pitching, the voice controls. It's just a lot of figuring out, like getting to the next step and the wait times between them.
You say it's a simulation. It mimics the pace of baseball.
Sure.
And I think it is, but I also agreed that last episode that we should maybe keep things to like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like I think 25 minutes here might get you like half the game.
Yeah, it's that double-edged sword that it's nice to have that extra presentation. It's nice to be able to see, you know, you see the scoreboard, you see the little cut scene, quote unquote, of you know, when you hit a home run. But then after a few times, it's like, okay, it's a cut scene of a little sprite running across the thing. Like, I don't need to see it every time. And I know I know it's nice, and I appreciate the effort that was put into it. But then after a while, I'm like, all right, I want to play the game now.
I hate to say it, but I was wrong. I was wrong when in the previous episodes I asked for more presentation, because what I got instead was a game that focused on style over function. And
I don't think so.
And I think no, because here's why. I know what you're saying. It's not that it doesn't work. That's not my problem here. It's that after playing it this way, I prefer the behind the catcher's mitt and swinging the bat that way and having the players look like meatballs. Like I'm preferring that look now, because like in terms of how the gameplay went. If they made them look like regular humans, I'd be fine with that too. But I don't think that this TV presentation was working for me in actual gameplay. I think it should have been limited to like in between innings and stuff like that. I don't think that
they're correlated. I think that like you're talking about the actual like little cutscenes.
I'm talking about for me the experience of pitching and batting in this game is not as fun. Just the whole game, actually, fielding, everything is not as fun as RBI baseball was, or any of those other baseball games, because of the way that this one chose to present it. In I don't
pitching and batting. See that they're okay. So you just like the perspective change.
The perspective
is the biggest
change
part.
is the biggest part for me. That's what I'm saying. Is that I had less fun playing this because I felt like I wasn't hitting as well, I wasn't pitching as well. And who knows? Maybe I just need to spend we're so used to playing baseball games the other way. So maybe seeing something with a different perspective just requires me to play it longer. But throughout the entire time that I gave the game, I always just kind of felt like, I just wish I was doing it the other way.
Okay.
I think I kind of agree too. Like I said, I do like the perspective here, and it is like, wow, this looks like baseball. But just it being the cartoony aspect of the last one, just first of all fit with the like little sprite aesthetic of the rest of the game, and second of all, I feel like made it seem like a little smoother. Like I don't know, something about the like realistic. Yeah,
this game, like in terms of controlling fielders, like is smoother. But while it is still slow, it feels much smoother.
Okay, so controlling fielders is not what I'm talking about. But I'm not sure. I still think that controlling fielders is clunkier. But I was talking even about like swinging the bat. Something about this one feels like, not that it like should matter too much, but feels like there are fewer frames or something. So it feels it just.
Okay.
Something about it in the other one. I think because they went with like a simpler aesthetic, it's just like, oh yeah, it's what I'm getting for the rest of the game. Also, it's just like I'm playing this game. But yeah, I mean, I disagree about the fielding. I did feel like this was a little slower, but maybe I do have to like literally play them back to back to really get a better idea. But
yeah, I definitely am not arguing about the presentation of the game at all, and I think it nailed that completely, and I was very surprised to see it. And I think no matter which way you slice it, this is like every other back of the box of all the other baseball games has been trying to tell you, like, this is Major League Baseball, and this is that, and it's like, no, this is Major League Baseball. If some kid looked at the back of the box and saw these images, they're buying this game, you know? And for me, it just wasn't as fun. And I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone. I don't say I speak for everyone. I just think that I was surprised to come to that verdict because I was looking for this, and then I realized it wasn't what I wanted.
I will say, though, that like in terms of the presentation, if you're going to name the game Bases Loaded, and you're going to allow situations where the bases are loaded and you can hit a grand slam, you should at least change the home run announcement to say grand slam. I wanted it to say that, and it never did.
You can't even see the bases loaded.
Yeah,
because
you
of the
got
perspective.
you got the little like
you got the little
map.
up in the top. Yeah. The top, but they're just squares there.
Yeah.
I didn't like that at first, and then I thought about it. I mean, that's kind of how modern baseball games are, right? They have the little. I mean, I guess even the last one had the little.
They
map,
have
but you
like
also
picture in
saw-
picture.
Yeah,
Yeah, they
gotcha.
I mean, like, listen. We're not comparing these games to modern baseball
I
games.
could barely tell the difference between this and modern baseball.
When I
games.
think of like what makes a great NES baseball game, it's one that I wouldn't mind to still play today. You know,
Yeah.
like when I boot up a lot of these games, these NES games, for me, it's not about comparing them to newer games. It's about splitting my time with newer games. And this one, is it worth it?
It's
to, like,
worth
go
the
back?
haunting.
100%.
Is it worth the
yeah.
hauntedness of playing
Yeah.
NES baseball games? And I'll tell you right now, for the most part, I have a lot of fun playing these games, but only for very small bursts.
Oh yeah.
And I did look into it, Sean, throughout this podcast, and I'm pretty convinced that this is a full 162 game season. In
I
Bases
could have
Loaded.
sworn it was a 9-game round robin.
I'm seeing passwords for game 162 to take you right to that. So
I thought it said it right in the manual.
Yeah, the
that it
manual
was
said a 9-game
yeah.
round robin.
right, and that's what maybe there's like a difference
9
between,
game season.
But is that
Unless there's
for
another thing.
pennant or is that for full season? Like,
There's
9
only
game season,
pennant
best of
and-
7 series.
there's only pennant inverse mode, so I don't know why.
Are you looking at Bases Loaded round 3?
I'm not. I'm looking at the regular bases loaded, and I did put in the code that they provided, and it did tell me game 162.
I don't know, man.
So I really don't know what to say.
Baseball's haunted.
But baseball's haunted in this regard, and who knows? You know, who knows? Who can say?
Mandela effect.
Right. In my version,
Yes.
in my universe, I come from the one where bases loaded had 162 games, and you come from the one where you only got 9. Do I think that anybody would want to play a 162 season of baseball just to get to a World Series, or find out that they're not eligible for a World Series after 162 games? No.
I think
don't.
people did, but I wouldn't.
Right. So I think, like, personally, 9 would have been enough anyway. So if it's 9, great. If it's 162, that's also fine. Neither one is impressive. You know, like programming that in there is just a save code. So I'm glad that it's there. Don't get me wrong. Like, the ability to save wins and losses for however amount of time, but it didn't really add anything because it doesn't really, like, I don't know. It doesn't really carry any weight to it.
What'd you think of the music, Joe?
I thought it was much better. Big improvement, yes. I actually thought it was pretty good.
Much better, but still entering like that carnival
Yeah.
feel,
Yeah.
you know? Like, something about this doesn't feel like baseball
Yeah.
music. But we haven't
Baseball
heard...
music is very carnival.
Well, I was going to say that we
like-
haven't heard any actual baseball music yet. We haven't heard anybody do Take Me Out to the Ball Game, or even like any kind of pipe
Up goes the
organs.
weasel.
Right. Or where's, like, you know,
Where's
Charge.
Waldo?
Right. Like, where's all that stuff?
Yeah.
I
Joe,
have to.
you can break
I
it,
have to
yeah.
say something. I just realized that when I looked up whether it was 9 game season, I was looking at the RBI baseball manual, so I don't know. Is the answer.
Whoopsies.
But I still
I'm
don't
talking
remember
about the last game. Sorry,
Oh, we
guys.
both are. So there you go.
There you go.
Because
Okay.
now I vaguely remember, and I can't find it now. Something about if you play a certain amount of games, you get a reward or something really vague like that in the manual.
No.
They just like show you a car
Yeah.
from like Rad Racer, and
But it was like a lot
it's in
of
your garage,
games.
but you can't go to your garage. All right, let's do sequels and spin-offs. You are not going to believe how many more times we have to play Bases Loaded on the NES.
How many?
Not one more time, not 2 more times, 3
Zero more
more times. 0 would have been funny too. We have to play Bases Loaded 2, second season.
Whoa.
Okay? And then forget ever naming them anything ever again.
Second season
That
is
is
so
Bases
funny.
Loaded 3, Bases Loaded 4. And you know what? I had to kind of just peek ahead and look at the graphics. I was like, how could they get better, right? They almost kind of don't. They almost kind of like scale back at a point. There was also a Game Boy version of Bases Loaded. I didn't even look at that one. I didn't bother it. But it would be interesting to see if they did the TV perspective for the Game Boy.
yeah,
100.
Yeah.
that'd be a nightmare.
I doubt it. The series does continue, though, on the SNES with Super Bases Loaded, Super Bases Loaded 2, and Super Bases Loaded 3. So really making me wonder why Bases Loaded 2 got the moniker second season. But the moniker comes back with the final entry on Sega Saturn and PlayStation 1. It is Bases Loaded
Apocalypse
96 doubleheader. And that game looks like ass. That game looks so bad for being a PlayStation and Sega Saturn game. It looks so bad that I'm not certain that they put faces on the people's heads. So something's happening to Jaleco at one point or another, but we'll find out as we continue to play these games. Just out of curiosity, are you looking forward to the other 3 Bases Loaded games?
I don't know. I'm not really. I don't really want to keep playing baseball games.
Well,
I signed up for nostalgia, not base-stalgia.
Well, we're gonna have to find out if you guys are looking forward to other Bases Loaded games when we find out if this Bases Loaded game was any good in our essential games list.
Sorry, this is kind of boring, but I mean, you heard my essential vote from last week, which was no for that game. This one, I thought this one was pretty close to being equal, maybe for me personally slightly inferior, so I also have to say no.
While apparently this is an unpopular opinion, this is a better game than the previous baseball games that we have played. It needs some tweaking for pacing and stuff, but in terms of baseball games in the NES, 10 out of 10 so far. But no, it's not an essential game. It's the same reason as the rest of them.
All right, and you know, for everything I've said about this game, I don't want to disappoint Sean here. I know what you're getting at here. I know what you're saying, like, but I'm not certain that this game should be compared to RBI Baseball. I feel like there are going to be fans of RBI Baseball.
They're baseball games.
You're right.
That can be compared.
Right. But I meant like there are just some people who are going to like the arcade.
Yeah, one doesn't have to win out over the other.
Yeah, but we're just talking about opinions. It's always been about opinions.
No, it's always been about opinions. I think like I surprised myself here too by not liking this game, but I wouldn't say that RBI Baseball is the superior one. I just wouldn't say that Bases Loaded was the superior one either. I think that there's something to be offered in both of those games that definitely puts them above the other 2 we played. But I don't know. RBI Baseball didn't get essential, so I'm not giving Bases Loaded an essential vote either. So it's not essential. The trajectory of baseball games getting better and better in Sean's book is still happening. In my book, it's right where it was in the last episode. So I'd give this one like a 40, like I said, for the other one.
I consider this like one moment in time that both these games came out and they improved on what came before them.
I'd give this a 40 as an improvement from my 25.
There you go. Okay. It's almost like a fork in the road, you know, and now games are either going to have to baseball games are going to either have actually sports games are just going to have to choose to either go like
more mustaches, less mustaches.
Exactly. And baseball had a ton of mustaches in the 80s, so yes. Okay, cool. So, you know where we stayed on baseball games for a while. I don't think we're going to get one again for this year, hopefully. But, you know, 1989 is a whole new season of baseball, and with that, a whole new season of us, too. I think the Dodgers won in 1988, the World Series.
It's good to know.
That's good to know, just to keep that in your head.
Spoilers.
I
was just catching up.
Yeah, they suck. Also, happy Valentine's Day to everyone who's listening. Love is in the air.
Is
we
this
love
posting
you
on Valentine's Day?
Yeah. We're recording it on Valentine's Day.
We're live right now on Valentine's Day.
Yep. I love all the listeners. Sean, do you have anything Valentine's Day-ish you want to say to the listeners?
I would really love a Valentine's Day card addressed to Wario.
Okay. Wario probably doesn't get that much love.
Yeah, I think that he deserves it.
Also, while you're at it, send a Valentine's Day card to Bowser, too. Clearly, that guy doesn't want to do anything too evil. He just wants to kidnap the princess because he's lonely.
Hey, and also, like, if there's a gamer girl or gamer boy in your life that you really want to give a Valentine's Day card to, you can do it. Just, don't be creepy about it.
Or just a gamer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any kind of
gamer. Gamer dog.
Gamer Herkimer, New Brunswick.
Yeah,
And we're now releasing our own, like, you know, those little Valentine's Day cards you give out in elementary
Yeah.
school. Releasing Nostalgia Valentine. I didn't tell you guys
wish.
about it, but I've been working on them
Oh,
as a
you
side
did do
project.
that.
Yeah, okay, great.
So releasing them, you can buy them in any store that you can find, like Marvel Valentine's
Yeah,
Day.
we're also we partnered with Necco Candy Hearts.
Yeah.
To make nostalgia themed Necco
Right.
Candy Hearts. They say like 1 up.
They all just say
like,
either
not
essential or
yeah.
not essential.
yeah. That's what the cards say. Like, will you be on my essential
Games list.
Yeah, persons list. I don't know.
Yeah,
Games list.
yeah. I apparently am not on certain people's essential persons list. I almost didn't make the cut, but Sean voted
that's right,
for me, and
that's
you only
right.
need 1 vote to be on the essential persons
That was
list.
the rules.
Well, speaking of
Apparently,
Valentine's
he's
Day,
been holding a grudge for all this time.
speaking of Valentine's Day, next week we will be playing Defender 2, and I will defend you as long as I have to, listeners, on Twitter, because we have a Twitter. It is at NostalgiaCast. Post a lot of cool stuff there. We posted a lot of Bases Loaded stuff there all week.
We did that.
Yeah, did you notice any of it? Not you guys, the listeners.
Oh, okay.
It's like, yeah.
It's hard to tell who you're talking to.
Yeah,
you know?
well, they, it's like Blue's Clues. They respond back to me.
right.
but
Yeah,
I don't know.
call it a response.
Yeah. So there's that. I'm Michael Esposito. You can find me on @EspositoFilm on Twitter, and I love you.